Here, friends, today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic in Copilot Studio with Microsoft Flows. This is about the difference between execute versus execute and wait actions. So, you must have seen while you are trying to connect your Microsoft Flows with your Copilot Studio agent, there are two ways which you can do so. One is just execute the agent, and another is execute and wait. What is essentially the difference between these two? This is what I am going to talk about today, requesting you to watch the video till the end. And just in case you have not already subscribed to my channel, please feel free to do so. Yo. All right. So the difference between execute agent and execute agent and wait. If you see, the execute agent is more like an asynchronous activity where the Power Automate flow sends a message to the Copilot agent to start a conversation and immediately proceeds to the next step in the flow without any caring, without waiting for the agent's final response. Whereas an execute agent and wait is a synchronous action. The flow sends a message to the Copilot agent, then flows basically pauses its own execution until the agent comes back with its response. Once the agent's response is received, the flow resumes, allowing the subsequent steps to take up to utilize the information returned by the agent. Execute agent also immediately proceeds to the next action, whereas the execute agent and wait until the agent with an outcome. Execute agent cannot directly use the agent's final output in subsequent steps, whereas the execute agent and wait response is available as a dynamic content for subsequent steps. So eventually what happens is if at all any response comes back from the agent's activity, it would be able to trace it and do any kind of manipulation if you want to parse it, if you want to read the response, or if you want to do any furtherance with the subsequent downstream actions. Execute agent and wait would let you do so, whereas execute agent would won't. It's not possible to do the same. So execute agent has some advantages that is it is very fast, whereas execute agent and wait is kind of a slower action. As you can understand, it's a synchronous action. It waits for the response, and unless the response comes, it won't let you to proceed any further. Let me cite you an example. In this following agent which I have created, it accepts the user's input to create sales order headers and sales order lines and returns details of the sales order that is created. So all I need to do is that I need to give this instruction that create new sales orders for this customer, for this legal entity, and for this item, for the warehouse and site, and all these details. I'm saying that when I'm going to press enter, the agent is going to get in touch with my sales orders header data entity and sales order lines data entity, and is going to take a while to with the status of the execution. So it is saying the sales order number is this with the customer account, and this is the legal entity. The currency is this. All these details it is grabbing from the sales order V4, that is sales order header V4, that is the sales order data entity, and sales order line V3, which is sales order lines data entity. This it is taking the help of these data entities to come back to me by the help of the tools that I created. And so the same thing, if I'm going to call from, imagine this, I'm calling this from a flow, and this is taking a huge lot of time to come back to me with the results. So I cannot simply execute and forget. I have to wait till the enter execute completes, and I would be in a position to give the results back to the user. So to demonstrate this, to make you understand what I'm actually trying to explain here, let me take you to a flow which I have just created and is making use of execute the agent and wait. And here is a very simple flow that actually waits for any email that comes and checks for a subject filter if it's containing these keywords sales order creation, then only the flow is going to get activated. And it's initializing a variable, the variable to get the users to get the sender's email ID, and it is storing that in a variable called sender email. And then I'm calling execute agent and wait. So this is what is this agent which I just showed it to you. This agent, I'm calling this agent, and I'm passing on the body of the email that I have received, and I'm waiting for the agent to be executed and waiting for its results. I'm not executing and forgetting. I'm waiting synchronously till the execution gets over and the results or the response comes to me. And then I'm calling a prompt. This prompt is doing what? This prompt is a very simple prompt that can convert the response of the agent, which I'm giving it as a text input variable, and loads that up into a mailer. So essentially, it is going to search for the sales order number that is going to get generated because of this agent's execution, and mention that on an outgoing mail back to the sender from which this mail has come. So if I take you back to my flow, it is then replying it back to the sender. I'm tracking the message ID of the sender which has sent me this email, and then I am just loading that sender email, which variable, the variable which I showed you previously, and the text variable. Text variable is the prompts variable which I am executing in the previous action. So if I so consequently, if you see the run of this flow, it will see that it is basically getting activated whenever any mail comes to it that contains this keyword sales order creation, and it is initialized with a variable. The variable is the sender's email ID. The sender email ID is, if you go to the raw outputs, you'll be able to see the variable's value, which is this sender, the name, the email ID of the sender. And then I'm executing the agent and wait for its outcome. So the outcome is basically stored in this JSON context, which you go down all the way down, and you would see the JSON's variable out here. The sales order has been created successfully with all these details. And if I'm going to pass this on to the prompt is going to decode it and is going to come back to it. So the input, you see, it's a gibberish context input, which is more of hash stars like that, which doesn't make any sense to an end user. So what it is doing is that it's going to convert this into something meaningful, and with the sales order number that has got created. Of course, you can break up it much more into detailed step. You can give it in something much more, seaworthy, much more beautifying it, and this whole beautification you can do as granular as possible. And then I'm doing what? I'm replying it back to the sender, and this is what is actually the executive agent and wait this activity is doing. Now if I don't use execute agent and wait, instead of that I'm going to use execute agent just, so I won't be able to get the result of the execution, I won't be able to get the details of the execution, and consequently I won't be able to the result of the execution into any downstream steps for furtherance. All right, let me take you leave here, and I would like to request you to try this example from your end. I hope you got the difference between execute versus execute and wait, and you can use the option as per your need. Keep in touch, and much love as always, Subhashish.